Hey, Jakeb here. This is a blog about Pride. This year, Pride turns 50, so it's 50 years since the Stonewall riots took place in New York in 1969, the year I was born. So what happened? Okay, so as you can imagine, LGBT people in America growing up against the homophobic, anti-communist, anti-LGBT backlash of the 1950s and the early 60s moved and gravitated to the big cities such as New York and San Francisco. And in New York, there was a large transgendered community that did include some drag queens, but mainly it was trans women of the time. And during the late 60s, the New York police were raiding these LGBT bars on a regular basis in acts of brutality and homophobia. And eventually people had enough. It's not known if this is true or not, but the night of Stonewall riots was also the night that Judy Garland died. And obviously Judy Garland at the time was a big LGBT icon, especially in the trans community. And the theory is that people just had enough, basically. And it's very important to remember that these riots were perpetrated and began and instigated by the trans community. So these were trans women of colour and of Latino heritage. And they basically had enough and fought back. And then there was a massive riot. Now, the following year, on the anniversary of that, the gay community in New York marched through the streets. And this is how gay pride marches started. Slowly and surely, they built up across other American big cities, spread to Europe, and I think London had their first one in 1974. And it became an annual event for LGBT people to march for solidarity and strength, and to show they were visible, to show we weren't going away, and to push, argue, and ask for equality and to be treated fairly, respectfully in society. Now, largely to some extent, this was successful and things began to improve during the 1970s. Not a lot, but tolerance and acceptance was beginning to happen. And then along came HIV and pushed it back decades, because then there was HIV, which primarily affected the gay male community at the time, and the gay male community in cities like New York and San Francisco and stuff like that were absolutely devastated by the virus because of the fact there were saunas and sex venues and things happening. And it became known as the gay plague, and obviously the media got hold of this and it pushed things back for us quite horribly. So we were then dealing with, in the mid to late 80s, a vehemently homophobic society and the HIV virus at the same time. So younger guys, you ask older guys in the 50s how many of their friends they were burying at this time. Remember this, please. At this time we were burying our friends on a weekly basis and dealing with homophobia in society. I had friends who, on the day of their partner's funeral, the family came and removed all of their partner's possessions from the house and wanted money for the joint possessions, demanded money from the partner for the joint possessions. This was happening. Now, things progressed, and treatments became available for HIV. Like I said, 30 gay men a week in the UK were dying of HIV at that point. You couldn't miss it in society and in the gay venues. And as a community, we had each other's backs. You know, the younger guys very much respected the older guys for their wisdom and what they had done. Now, when we get to the 1990s, things improve a lot. However, on my first Gay Pride March in 1992, the police were there to protect us. Yes, that's right, to protect us from the bricks and the stones and the bottles that were thrown at us from people on the street. And the police were not happy. They were stood there like that. They were not happy to be there, and they were muttering under their breath, fucking faggots and stuff like that. And to be honest, most of them probably would like to have thrown bottles at us. Now, by the time we get to the late 90s, things have improved a lot, okay? And obviously, if you know your history, between 97 and today, basically, a lot of progress has been made in regards to the LGBT community, in regards to rights, in regards to safety, in regards to acceptance and tolerance and stuff like that. However, you know, younger guys, and you're getting ready on your Saturday night and you're putting your glitter on and your little rainbow things and your makeup and you're expressing your sexual orientation openly. Remember, the generation of guys that I come from, you know, and the guys who are perhaps 40 plus, if we had done that, we would have been battered senseless on the streets with baseball bats. And the police would have said it was our fault for us dressing and behaving in that way. I'm not criticising or judging you if you do that, and that's the way you choose to present yourself, but that was how homophobic society was. And it is guys like me, and my generation of guys who fought and struggled and pushed to make it safe as it is today, or safer as it is today, because there are still issues, and there is still homophobia, and it hasn't gone away, and it's getting worse, which is why we need to have each other's backs, and we need to stop this judging within our community of people who are different and who are not fitting the gay stereotype that's accepted in the gay community. In order where you've got to be a certain way to be accepted in the gay community, there's room for all of us. You know, not all of us masculine guys are arseholes, you know, and we need to remember this, because those days may come back. Look what's happening around us. Those days may come back, and you younger guys are ill prepared to deal with it. Us older guys have forgotten somewhat. I'm sure we will remember how we dealt with it, so we need to support each other in the community a lot more. And as we're marching at our Pride marches and we're out there, we need to be remembering where we came from and where it all started and who we have to thank. Yes, I'm speaking to you, who we have to thank for LGBT Pride, who started it. And we need to remember all the countries in the world that are backwards and are in the times that we were in the 60s and 70s, and the countries that actually go further and imprison, torture and kill people for being LGBT. There is room in our community for everybody, no matter how they orientate their masculinity or femininity, how they present their gender, how they manifest their gender identity. There is room for all of us. So remember that when you're marching for Gay Pride this year, you know? Thank you. And enjoy Pride. Where the Pride you go to, enjoy it.